Welcome to Act One, a Canadian take on news events, where tonight I'm going to be talking about the Canadian political landscape. Kind of going back on brand after my video yesterday where I talked about the Blue Jays. Nothing about that tonight. I'm going to be focusing in to start with, uh, going to focus in on Mark Carney's comments in China with respect to quote unquote the new world order, which are not words that YouTube likes. I am certain, 99.999% certain that this video will earn a comment flag notification from YouTube. It will be down below the video, won't take long, and they will call the New World Order a conspiracy theory. And, you know, I want to get into this because so often what there are individuals who will tell you that conspiracy theories would be better called spoiler alerts. So often what is deemed to be conspiracy later turns out to be true. When during the COVID era, that should have been a wake-up call for everyone when this idea of having detention centers and things of that nature, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, never going to happen. And then what did we have in Canada? We had airport area hotels being commandeered by governments and being used as detention facilities for travelers coming back into the country. Wow. I got a number of people on. I think this is going to be a hot topic. And I've got Nancy here. She's a moderator, as is Danny. They are both here. They're here in case, it has happened, especially when they're on politically sensitive topics. Videos I've done have attracted the troll type posters filling up the live chat, and that's why they're here. I am something of a free speech advocate, and Danny and Nancy have always given everyone a lot of rope to hang themselves with. You really have to push it. But I genuinely enjoy respectful, mature dialogue. However, I am not above responding in kind to those who push the limit. At any rate, comment was made with respect to Max being so cute by Nancy. Il est tellement cute. Yeah, he is. He is wonderful. Where's my treat? Did he get it out of my pocket? Max, did you get your treat already? Going into my pocket. Oh no, he didn't get it yet. I have a chewy. I call them chewies. They're these dented treats. So pardon me while I come get your treat, Max. We'll see if he comes. He's jumping all over me. Now he's found some. Oh, here he is. He's underneath the. Come here. Give me your paw. Come here. Where are you? Okay, here he is. Come here. Come here. Get out from under the table. Give me your paw. Shake a paw. Shake a paw. Shake a paw. And say lay down. There we go. Shake a paw. Shake. Good boy. And come on up. Let people see you. Here. Come here. Come get it. I like showing off his white mantle. That's he has a white mantle and four white paws. And if anyone's curious, he is a genuine 100% purebred mongrel hound. He's got everything in him. He's got boxer, he has Springer Spaniel, he has Border Collie, probably some lab. Anyway, uh, and let's get into it. New World Order. And I want to read exactly, I transcribed the words that Mark Carney spoke, and they're all over. I'm sure everyone's seen the video. I'm not going to share the video, but here is what he said. The clip, that is the portion I'm sure there was probably more said, but the section that bears scrutiny is he said, we're heartened by the leadership of President Xi Jinping. I'm not probably not pronouncing that very well, but as good as I can do. We are heartened by the leadership of President Xi Jinping and the speed with which our relationship has progressed in recent months. I believe the progress that we have made and the partnership sets up well for the new world order. And I said it at the end, in pretty much the same cadence. He very much drew it out. The partnership sets up well for the new world order. I imagine that he's in Beijing, he's in China. I imagine his words are being translated to Chinese Communist Party officials. I don't know if Xi Jinping speaks English very well or not. He's probably having translation done as well. And it strikes me that Carney wanted to really emphasize and be clear and make sure that the Chinese understood that he, as Prime Minister of Canada, is moving this country, our country, Canada, into a partnership, and that this sets up well for the new world order. And there's a lot of off ramps we can take when it comes to this statement. Most will know that during the leadership debate in our most recent election, April 28th, that Carney asked what is the biggest threat, the biggest security threat facing Canada in that debate. He said that the biggest security threat facing Canada is China. And now, not even a year later, just a few months later, now he's signaling that Canada is entering into partnership with a brutal Chinese dictatorship. So let's unpack this. Okay, Danny was writing that his screen went black, but now it's working again. Let me know if there are any issues on the stream. Eat Me and Danny are amazing at filling up the live chat, and I enjoy that. I like to springboard against off of what is being written. So if you're, other than Danny and Nancy, don't be shy. If you're new or newer, if you haven't chimed in before and you want to just give us an indication where you're from, that would be great. I'm assuming most will be Canadian, but some may not. I have people from other parts of the world come on the stream, a lot of Americans, Brett Skinner, Hank Holiday, Koja Malik, and others, and individuals coming from places like Denmark, and I've had South Africans on the stream, so fill it up. Anyway, I'm not going to repeat what Danny wrote, but everyone remembers the signs that they had for Trudeau, and a four-letter word with a maple leaf flag or a maple leaf representing the letter U. I'll leave it at that. That's what he's saying about Carney and his Communist Party. And Danny's saying that Carney is not his prime minister, is not mine either. Legally speaking, though, whether we like it or not, he is our prime minister. I don't like it, but that's reality. So, what order are we moving into? I don't think there should be anything conspiratorial about talking about transitioning into a new world order, because if you're a student of history, you know that the way the world is ordered has changed. If we go back to the Middle Ages, we had a feudal system, and then we transitioned from a feudal system into the what I will call the empirical system of empire. Then we transitioned from that era of empires ruling the world to the rise of the nation state. And so, and I believe very much that we are in a transitionary phase right now, moving to, and so change is the one constant. The Roman Empire was around. Probably, citizens in the Roman Empire probably thought it would never end, that it would last forever, that it would endure, but nothing lasts forever. And we are in a transitionary phase. What are we transitioning from? And what are we transitioning toward? That needs a little bit of unpacking. We had what I will call the age of empire, when in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, the world's major powers were basically going around dividing up the globe. The British were grabbing Oceania, Australia, New Zealand. They were establishing colonial holdings in India, in North America, all around the world. The sun never sets on the British Empire. They were the dominant player. But the French had an empire, the Spanish had their empire, the Dutch had an empire, the Russians, of course, there were the Ottomans in the Middle East. There were empires all over the place. And when the First World War took place, 1914 to 1918, it had a number of different names. It didn't start being called World War One until after World War Two. So after World War One ended, if you picked up a history book reporting on it, it might refer to it as the Great War or the War to End All Wars. But the sobriquet, the name that I like that is also affixed to it is the end of empire. It was like the world's empires, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire allied with the French Empire, and as well, eventually the ascendant American Empire joined. And it was like, the chessboard, let's reset it. And in the wake of World War One, the war to end all wars, the end of empire, after the end of that war, we had the rise of the nation state. I'm going to take a break right now. And I've got Nancy Waltzer here from South Florida. Wow, fantastic. A lot of Canadians down in Florida. And as Floridians like to say, what is the difference between a Canadian and a canoe? And they will tell you a canoe tips. Canadians are sometimes thought of as being cheap down in Florida. Anyway, little joke. Anyway, good to have you on here, Nancy Waltzer. Appreciate you chiming in. And let's see what else is being said. Nancy is saying that we need a new flag that has half of the Canadian flag, half of the Chinese flag, saying F. Carney. And then Danny is saying that the New World Order they're looking at is a cross between Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, famous novel, and 1984, the seminal novel by George Orwell. We're basically screwed if we allow this to go through. We must fight. The way I break it down is this. So we have currently, the world has an order. The United States of America is the world's dominant player. They're the largest economy in the world. They're the largest military power in the world, and everything flows from that. But have always been competing players. After World War II, as America ascended to being the dominant player, counter forces arose primarily in what we used to call the Soviet Union, what is called Russia now, Communist Soviet, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, And so you had Russia, and then they swallowed up Ukraine, they swallowed up the Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and they then they had their what they called the Iron Curtain, or what we called the Iron Curtain, their satellite nations. They had East Germany, they had Poland, they had Czechoslovakia, and the world was basically divided in two. And the world somewhat reordered. A marginal shift happened in the late 80s, early 90s as the old Soviet Union imploded, collapsed in on itself. A lot of historians, a lot of academics put the blame for that on Russia's invasion, or the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan, interestingly, because the view is that the Soviets blew their brains out by trying to capture Afghanistan. And it must be remembered that when the Soviets captured Afghanistan, leading to the 19, I'm trying to remember which there was an Olympic Games in Moscow, and the West, we boycotted. We refused to participate in the Moscow Olympics that year because of their invasion of Afghanistan. And the United States armed, trained, funded insurgent groups in Afghanistan to combat. They did not want the Soviet Union controlling that key piece of real estate. And the thing about Afghanistan is winning the war is easy. Go in, you can take it, no problem. The difficulty is that you can never win the peace because of the terrain, the topography of Afghanistan, and the ability for insurgent fighters, rebels, to head off into the hills and to hide out in caves, and then, to engage in guerrilla style warfare. And so, uh, while the Soviet Union captured and they won the war in, taking Afghanistan, they were never able to secure the peace. And one of the individuals believed to have been part of this U.S. operation to destabilize Afghanistan, so to get the Russians out, to get the Soviets out. One key figure was Osama bin Laden, a Saudi Arabian prince who was said to be very charismatic. And if you're ever interested in reading an interesting novel about that time, where there is very much an Osama bin Laden type character, very tall, character, very charismatic, and the U.S. taps him and helps him to become the face of the opposition to Soviet occupation, Soviet colonization, if you want to call it that. Anyway, um, I'm going off on all kinds of crazy tangents. I love this stuff. Yes, if you can see it on my shirt, I'm ex-military. I was in the Canadian Armed Forces until 2021. I left because I knew that at some point they were going to be forcing the COVID shots on members, and I did not want to be in a situation where I would be ordered to take one, and if I refused, that could be the way I envisioned it, that could have been construed as disobeying a lawful order. And that's not a good thing when you're in the military. You don't want to be brought up on charges, could lead to a court martial, dishonorable discharge, the works. Anyway, so we have the world as it's constituted now and the way it's been constituted pretty much since World War II. What are we moving into? What is this new world order? How are they going to reorder the way this world operates? And the way I see it, there are two competing visions. One has China at the head, driving the bus, and that is a communist system. And for those who do not understand communism, one of the principal tenets of communism is that the state owns what are called the means of production. There are no private corporations in a communist state. Now, the Chinese have kind of played with communism a bit. They have stock markets. They've injected some free market capitalistic ideas into the system because they reckon, but I would submit that the reason they did that is that they recognize we live in a capitalistic world. And the reason we live in a capitalistic world is because the United States is the number one economic and military player. I wonder about their commitment to free market reforms if they supplant the United States as the world's policeman, the world's top dog. And right now, in terms of world, if you look at world economies, America's number one, China's number two. If you look at military, America's number one, China's number two. But China is ascending. They have been growing exponentially for the past 15, 20 years. They've been climbing significantly. And the US has been in decline. And I do think that, love him or hate him, Donald Trump is at least stemming the decline, and he might just be reversing it. Need more time to tell. But it strikes me that previous administrations, particularly the Obama and the Biden administrations, that they were content to watch the US go down. And I think they very well may have been abetting it with their policies. Anyway, let me see what's being written. Danny, who incidentally is a military veteran as well. He was in the reserve force. I was reg force. And just to put a fine point on things, I consider I do not, in a fashion, I do not consider myself a real military veteran because I was not in the combat arms. Combat arms would be infantry, armored, which is tanks, artillery, howitzers, that kind of thing, and then combat engineers. I was not in the combat arms. I was communications on my little thing down in the corner there. That's a Jimmy, the Hermes, the god of communications. He's the Greek god of communication. The Roman equivalent is Mercury. And so you can see Jimmy there. That's an old beret that has dog hair on it. That's Hermes. And also the corporate emblem for FTD Florists. Anyway, wow, got a number of people here. Beautiful Dreams 6711. We are so fortunate to have Mark Carney as our PM. We have a dissenter here. Well done. I am very positive about our economic future with us making amends with China and establishing new friends and trade partnerships. You better watch out who your friends are in the emerging, quote unquote, to quote Mark Carney, into this emerging new world order. That is what I would say to Beautiful Dreams. Look at China in terms of their population. They're 1.4 billion, give or take. Canada, 40 odd million. You can't make any comparison. We are a flea on the back of an elephant. And who is going to direct this relationship if we get deeper in with China? A communist dictatorship that suppresses human rights? This is who we're tying ourselves to. Not a wise move. I have no illusions that my little pathetic, raw little YouTube station is going to move the needle anything, not one scintilla. but I'm still going to inject my voice into the public discourse. I'm going to shake my fist at the cloud. I'm going to tilt at windmills. For those who know Cervantes and his novel Don Quixote. Anyway, uh, there are two. I was saying that's one compete. This is one new world order. This is one reordering of the way that things operate on this in this world. China at the head, moving toward a more communistic, dictatorial type system. That's one. There's my opinion, I think there is a competing vision as well, and it's similar and different. And that is the WEF, the World Economic Forum, the world's multinational corporations funneling money in for their common interests. And and in that ordering of the world, then it's the corporate world. It's the Bill Gates, the Soros, the Jeff Bezos, the uber wealthy who are driving the bus. And government is there simply to hold the leash on the population. That's the way I view the World Economic Forum, their vision. And either way, and also I should point out, I view the WEF corporate led reordering of the world. To my mind, that is fascism. Fascism allows for private corporate ownership. Communism, pure communism, pure Marxist Leninism, the state owns the means of production. They own the factories, they own the corporations, they have the capital. And I do not want to be cozying up to, and I'll say it in a Trumpish fashion, China. I do not want to. When it comes to Trump, I recognize that he is probably the most divisive figure of my lifetime. You either love him or you hate him. And I'm there are a number of us around, I'm in the middle. Some things I like, a lot of things I don't. I don't like his personality. He's too thin-skinned. Um, you know, yeah, it's funny. There are things that I love and hate at the same time. I like, in a fashion, the fact that Trump, and pardon me for swearing. I'm a Christian. I try not to engage in swearing, but at the same time, I recognize it's just words. It's just four letters pushed against each other to make a sound, and so I'm going to swear a little. Trump is a shit talker, and there is something appealing about him being a shit talker because it's not filtered. I mean, typically speaking, politicians go out of their way. They choose their words very carefully because they want to make sure that they don't say anything. And as proof of that is listen to them. So very rarely do they ever say anything. They indicate, well, what did President Xi Jinping say to you? Well, the Chinese premier, or whatever his title is, president premier, he indicated to me, and I indicated to him. They don't say anything, they indicate and they advise and they move forward. They don't do anything. They have initiatives. I'm borrowing a lot of this from a famous speech by routine that George Carlin did for the Washington Press Gallery at a gala event they had honoring him. And brilliant. If you ever want to see a brilliant wordsmith at work, George Carlin talking to the Washington Press Gallery, he had them rolling in the aisles. And well, a lot of things are being said. It's tough for me to, keep my train of thought going and jump on the well, but wait a minute. I've got to highlight this one though. I mean, I don't want to attack, but yeah, I've got Beautiful Dreams 6711 is saying, oh, but and I don't want to straw man it, but yeah, I'm going to a little bit right now. Oh, but China never interferes with another country's internal affairs. Are you kidding? Our own Canadian Security and Intelligence Service, CSIS, I got my security clearance through these guys, have notified us. They've told the world that China is interfering in our electoral process. We just had an election where a liberal MP pointed to a conservative MP who is wanted by the police in Hong Kong, which is China. It's no longer Hong Kong is not part of Britain anymore. And they've got a 200-ish thousand dollar Canadian bounty on on what was a conservative candidate for the most recent election. And you had a liberal MP saying, hey, if you want to pick up a couple 100,000, you can go kidnap this guy and deliver him to the Chinese consulate. And so to say Beautiful Dreams 6711, China never interferes with another country's internal affairs, for shit. They interfere massively. Now, in fairness, does the US this is the game of real politic. This is the game of real politic. And Canada, the United States interferes. The world's major players interfere. The Russians, the Chinese, the Americans, or the Iran interferes, Israel interferes. Everyone has their agents, their moles, their operatives. They have compromised individuals in key positions who they can rely upon. I mean, that Beautiful Dreams stick around. I do like having those who don't share my point of view. I don't like being in an echo chamber. But would you recognize at least, I ask you directly, you can put it in a comment, that China does interfere in other nations' affairs? This is I do not use TikTok, but partly that's probably just my age. I'm going to be 60 in a few months. It's amazing at my age that I'm doing a YouTube channel all on my own, and that's why the production value isn't great. That's why, it's very raw and basic, no AI. I don't use AI to generate my content because I don't know how and I don't want to. I don't like AI. But this is the world. We talk about a new world order. We're talking about the surveillance state. I look at what's happening right now down in Minnesota and elsewhere, Portland, Oregon. Used to live there. Uh, I used to live in the US. I spent some years growing up there. I am a Canadian born citizen of this country. However, when I was 6 months old, my dad's employer, his employment, we moved down to New York City. Later, we were in New Jersey. And then after that, we went to Portland, Oregon. But since 1978, I've been a resident of only Canada, although I have made many visits down to the United States. Anyway, it's a digression, another digression. Danny retracted. Beautiful Dreams wrote, my respect. Oh, crap. Pardon me. Okay, I'm trying to get, okay. Beautiful Dreams wrote, my respect and salutation to all our brave men and women in our military who are present here. Now you have two veterans anyway. You have myself and Danny. Beyond that, I don't know. And Thank you. I consider that something of an olive branch. Even though we're disagreeing, in a democracy, we don't, in a dictatorship, this is my way or the highway. Yeah, and that's the thing is I've talked about competing visions, a new world order, to use Mark Carney's phrasing, headed up with Canada's new partner, China, a brutal dictatorship. Look back at Tiananmen Square. Look at how and I can't pronounce it, the Chinese Muslims, look at how they're treated. Look at how Chinese Christians are treated. Is this who we really want to be cozying up to? That's the communist dictatorial system. But the alternative with the WEF is no better. Whether you're under a fascist, Franco Spain type dictatorial authoritarian rule, that's not good. Or if you're under communist rule, that's not good either. And this is what we are moving to. It's just a question of which brand of authoritarian rule are we, how's it going to shake out? Anyway, um, Danny's saying that he is mostly pro-Trump. I'm not surprised. I tend to compartmentalize. Give me an issue, and with respect to Trump, and sometimes I like what he does, sometimes he doesn't. I love the fact that the man knows the difference between a man and a woman, a boy and a girl, between XX and XY. It's nice to have someone who recognizes the basic fabric of reality sitting in the White House. Danny's writing, Carney is only interested in making himself and his company millions. And remember, he is heavily invested. He finally, after the election was over, we got to find out how heavily invested he is. And most of his holdings are outside Canada. He's got like nothing. He's got a thimble full of holdings in Canadian businesses. Most of his holdings are American and international. He's a big investor in coal, in pipelines, but not Canadian pipelines that are overseas. Anyway, Whale Oil Beef, who's in British Columbia. So I've got some Americans, beautiful dreams. If you wouldn't mind putting down and be as broad, tell me you're Canadian. I'm assuming you're Canadian. And if you wouldn't mind giving me a general or a specific idea of where you're from. I know Danny's from Montreal, Nancy's from Montreal. Whale Oil Beef is from, I think it's Richmond. I always get the city wrong. Burnaby, Richmond. I've never been to British Columbia. So, and he's saying, shite, LOL. Seems to me Trump is tasked with ridding all British rule and order. Well, the degree to which Trump can be manipulated, I think, is a question that needs to be answered, because you look at the situation that's happening down in Minneapolis, and my views are very much in flux with respect to that, because I think it's reasonable for a country to want to enforce its immigration laws and to deport those who break those laws. But at the same time, I almost have to wonder, is this going to be used in the United States as a pretext for the introduction of a digital ID? Well, to ensure that illegal immigrants can be identified, we're going to introduce a digital ID. And for anyone to work in any capacity, whether it be as a casual employee, whether it's picking crops in California, whatever, you will have to show proof, or you'll have to show your digital ID. And it strikes me that you would have a lot of Trump MAGA type individuals going, good, all right, give me my digital ID, the same way that people were anxious to get vaccinated with the COVID crap, because they said, hey, look, now I've got my vaccine passport. I can go to the gym. I can get on a plane. You unvaccinated moron, you can't. I get to do everything. I obeyed. It was so annoying what happened. Anyway, um, just reading on oh, I keep scrolling too far. Beautiful Dream 611 says, I take that report from CSIS with a pinch of salt. And that's typically the way it goes. If a news story confirms a biased point of view, then it's credible. If a news story contradicts a point of view, well, that they're exaggerating. And that is a function I find of people living in their echo chambers. For me, it's indisputable that a major world player like China, that they interfere in a small little country like Canada? Of course they would. This game is played all the time. The Russian Igor Guzenko, was found out we had a Soviet spy network in Canada operating in the 1950s. The Soviets spied on us. Of course, China is spying on us. But anyway, she's saying pinch of salt, especially when they keep spreading rumors about China's police in Toronto, when the Chinese police concerned were actually security guards. Well, obviously, the question is, are they armed? What authorities do they have? What are they doing? What are they is this, espionage is not conspiracy. Do countries spy on one another? Oh no, that's a conspiracy. Of course countries spy on each other. Come on. Even allies. Even allies. Tell you an interesting little story. When Canadian military officials went down to Washington and they were meeting with their corresponding Pentagon officials, someone pulled out a Canadian quarter, the one with the red poppy in it. And this is just a regular quarter. I don't have the poppy one. And they pulled that out and it caught, you can read into it. It caused, there's paranoia sets in. And the reason paranoia sets in and people start tilting at windmills, to use that old Don Quixote reference, is because it's real. Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond novels that later led to the movies, that technology that you see James Bond using, maybe they push it a bit far, but it does happen. There are through DARPA, through government agencies in the United States, they are financing and funding surveillance equipment that is mind blowing, nanobots, things like that. You think it's a dragonfly. Well, it could not be. It might be a nanobot that's engaging in surveillance, audio and video. Uh, the world of technology has gone so far that it's beyond my capacity for understanding. And Danny is saying, I said, with respect to China not spying, not interfering in other countries' affairs, I said horse shit, and Danny hasn't heard that. I won't go any further than that on this stream. Uh, uh, And then Whale is saying that horse hooey is a Pierre Trudeau expression he believes gonna get off the whole New World Order China thing, because there are other things happening on the Canadian political landscape that I want to cover. And incidentally, if anyone's curious, yes, well, you didn't ask the question, but I did study political science at York University. My area study was political science and the humanities. And you hear my literary references and you hear me talking about politics, should be pretty clear. With that being said, I am not here to say that I am the end all be all, that I know everything about Canadian politics. I do think I am better informed than the majority, but there are people who know tons more than I do. Okay. It's like my video yesterday chiming in on the Blue Jays. There are individuals who know way more, are way more deep in the weeds. But I'm very comfortable talking about politics. Um, anyway, let's read what is being written. Danny is saying there is a secret police station in Toronto. Just because you refuse to believe it does not make it unreal. It's very real. One of the difficulties I have myself is I'm a naturally born skeptic. And uh, if there is a secret police base, Chinese secret police base in Toronto, well, then if it's verifiably, unquestionably true, then it's not secret anymore, obviously. And in point of fact, I can't say definitively that I believe that there is. I lean toward that, but I haven't seen what I would frame as definitive proof. Maybe Danny sends me a lot of stuff. Maybe you can send me something, but it's got to be, not a YouTube video, not a guy like me just talking off the top of his head or even reading off a script. Uh, and multiple sources is always better. Beautiful Dreams is now writing, there is none. It won't be possible in Canada. I don't know what that's in reference to. Uh, but she does say, and then Beautiful Dreams this is with respect to a secret Chinese police station. If there is, it is shocking. Please tell me where. I'm going there to investigate and to see for myself. I'm going to assume Beautiful Dreams that then you're somewhere in the GTA. And you look over my shoulder here. I've got an old picture. It's a print of a painting. That would be the CN Tower, looking south from King Street, sometime circa 1978, in and around there. When my family, after spending about 10 years in the United States, finally came back permanently to our home and native land. Are we allowed to say that in today's culture? Can I refer to Canada? Can I invoke the words of our national anthem and say my home and native land? Or is that going to trigger those? I'll leave it there. Um, and then Danny is writing, it's all good except the Minneapolis now looks like Somalia, not like the US. So one thing when you're watching things on video, you're getting a microscopic view. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities, their metropolitan population for the broader metropolitan area is like 3 million people. It's massive. And I'm not going to suggest for 1 second that I have any concept of what it's like in Minnesota right now, you know, because of videos, because of I'm not saying the incidents didn't happen, but I imagine, just a guess on my part, that there are people living in Minnesota who are like, I'm not paying attention to that. I'm just living my life. I'm ignoring it. And who are treating it as though and are just living a normal life. I'm fairly certain. I can't say definitively, I can't prove it, but that's my gut. Uh, and Beautiful Dreams is saying she is from Toronto. I used to live in Toronto myself. I used to live at Pape and Cosburn. I used to live on Cosburn Avenue between Pape and Donlands. And then I had an apartment as well on Thorncliffe Park Drive. And now I reside in Northumberland County, Eastern Ontario. Once you get to Oshawa, keep going for an hour, and then you get into my neck of the woods. I'm very much in rural southeastern Ontario, very close to CFB, Canada base Trenton, where the wing is. I was there working at a radar station for over 6 years, and that's where I ended my career in the military in June of 2021. At any rate, uh, Beautiful Dreams writes, everybody spying on everybody. I don't know about everybody, but pretty much any country of any size. I know Canada, we engage in it, but we're too nice. We're too nice, but it's everywhere. There's I like using big words on occasion. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Uh, Danny's writing that he didn't get the jab and wasn't allowed anywhere, but hey, I still have an immune system. That's the way I feel. Um, and then, oh, you can use our native land because I still use in all our sons command, not in all of us command. That's an insult to all who served in the military. I'm going to let you know something, Danny. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. Little history on the Canadian national anthem, O Canada. It was written before World War One, and the original lyric was, "In us thou dost command." Very biblical language, very, King James type language. "In us thou dost command" was the original lyric as written by Weir, the guy who wrote the words. Then World War One happened, and Canada was sending its sons. Back then, women did not serve in the military except in support roles, back in the home front. They were not going overseas. They were not going to be getting into the trenches. And so the decision was made to change the lyric from "In us thou dost command" to "In all thy sons command." Then, but oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all our sons, in us thou dost, in all of us, whichever version, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. The original was, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee." Go watch videos from the early 70s, late 60s hockey games where they played the national anthem. There was no from far and wide, "O Canada, we stand on guard for thee," and there was no "God keep our land." That was not in the original lyrics either. That was introduced in the 70s. Our national anthem changed shortly after it came into being during World War One. It changed in the 70s when we added, "From far and wide." We added, and no one complained back then. No one complained. We weren't all. No one got offended by a little minor change in the national anthem. They adding in "God keep our land" was a major change. And no one complained. You didn't even hear the atheists complaining. "What are we doing invoking God?" Blah, blah, blah. No one complained. Now they go from "In us thou dost command" to "In all thy sons command," and then they change it and make it "In all of us command." And in all of us, oh my gosh, it bothers me. I get triggered. Anyway, uh, and oh, okay. And I like what Danny writes us all the time. Uh, Jesus is Lord and King. Amen. Uh, Beautiful Dreams lives in Etobicoke. She's from drug dealer Dougie Ford's neck of the woods, where Dougie was in high school. And actually, I did live in Etobicoke as well, but I was 4 years of age. I have memory of it, but not from a 4 year old's perspective. Don't remember it well. We came back we lived in New York City until I was 3. Moved there when I was 6 months old. Moved to Staten Island, New York, one of the boroughs, and then my dad got transferred back to Canada, and we, back home, and we lived in Etobicoke, and we were only back for 4 or 5 months when they said to my dad, his employer, "We want you back in New York." And my dad said no. However, they turned around and said, "How much?" They thought he was negotiating. And so he chose a figure. And we were talking about 1969 areas, 1970 here. And he came back with a figure that he thought was way too high. And he was mad when they accepted it. He goes, damn, I should have asked for 5 grand more. He really didn't want to go, but he gave them a figure, they matched it, and we moved and ended up in. Now, we didn't live in Staten Island. Staten Island was a hole. Now, my dad was making a pretty good buck, and we lived in North New Jersey. We lived in one or two towns over from a place where Richard Nixon had a house. Anyway, uh, and New Westminster on the Fraser River. See, I have New Westminster, and where is it? There's a town on the Alberta Saskatchewan border, Floydminster. Weird. Uh, and then Danny's writing, the complaining only started after Gen X. Before that, we weren't allowed to complain. LOL. And Danny is folding his hands. He's bushed. Good night, y'all. Bonne nuit to eat me. Night as well. God bless, Danny. Thank you for showing up. Enjoyed your contribution. Beautiful dreams. Glad to see you're sticking around. I hope you like the stream. Anyone else, too. If there are others watching, I see I've got like 7, it's fluctuating. Right now, there are 7 people watching. Not everyone's commenting. You're welcome to comment. Um, I try to, I'm trying to foster a channel where people can come together with differing point of views because we need to we need to dialogue without screaming, without yelling. And we need to toughen our skin enough so that, yeah, people get triggered. Everyone gets triggered. Everyone. I get triggered. You get triggered. Everyone gets triggered. Goodness knows Donald Trump gets triggered. Arnie gets triggered. We all do. Anyway, uh, and Beautiful Dreams is saying she heard that it was farmland back then. My area, Northumberland County, is still a lot of farmland. We orchards, apple orchards. If you drive about an hour down the 401 heading east toward Kingston, Montreal, once you get an hour out of Oshawa, you'll see the Big Apple. The Big Apple. Anyone who's been down this way knows the Big Apple, and that's about 15, 20 minutes from me. Go there on occasion during the summer. Um, and it still is farmland, but now we have we got the people from the city coming in, and there are new subdivisions going up, and the population, it's not going crazy, but it's growing. We're about, my little town's about 15,000 people called Brighton. Anyway, let's move on from the new world order. I just check back if you're watching live. There will be a notification below this video with a Wikipedia page talking about this idea of a new world order, of the world changing the way in which it is ordered, that this is a conspiracy. The world is always going to stay the same. It always has. We didn't have feudalism before. We didn't have an empire system before. That's all conspiracy theory. The world always stays the same. Of course, there is going to be the world is going to reorder itself. We are in shaky times. Anyway, moving on. What else is happening in Canada? In the province, la belle province du Québec, on avait la resignation de François Legault. We've had the resignation of what Quebecers call their prime minister, their premier ministre. Anglophones, we call it the premier. Premier François Legault, who is the leader of the Coalition Avenir de Québec, has pulled what I see seems to me is very much a Trudeau. He had, previous to a few days ago, it's within the past week, he had been saying, I'm staying on, I'm going to fight the next election. I'm confident, blah, 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 blah. What everything pretty much that Trudeau was saying last year, back in, actually, I guess in 2024, everything Trudeau was saying right up until he resigned is what Legault was saying. But then a few days ago, within the past week, Legault announced that he is stepping down. He will stay on as premier and as leader of the party. And but the Quebecers have to go to the polls in sometime in October. That's when the sand in the hourglass runs out, and there has to be an election. And it will be interesting to see what happens because the CAQ, that's the Coalition Avenir de Québec, and that stands for the Coalition for the Future of Quebec. Avenir means future. They they're way down in the polls, very low. And I don't have the numbers directly at hand, but yeah, it's like I think less than 20. I think and so and the Parti Québécois, which is the separatist party, the party that was led by René Lévesque. He created the party and ran it and became premier, and he led Quebec into its first referendum in 1980. I think the year was 1980. And then Lucien Bouchard, and now Plamondon, I think, is the name of a very young, very charismatic leader who has made it a key plank of his party's platform, the Parti Québécois, that if the Parti Québécois forms the government, that they will table legislation and have a third referendum is coming for Quebec if the Parti Québécois wins, and they are riding highest in the polls. They're up in the 35, 36 area. And for a long time in Quebec politics, it was very binary. It was the Parti Québécois or the Liberals. The Liberals or the Parti Québécois go back and forth. The reason I'm able to jaser un peu en français, ma langue maternelle, c'est absolument l'anglais. My first language is absolutely English, mais je débrouille très bien pour la plupart en français, but I can get by pretty darn good in French. I was posted to Valcartier from 2011 to 2015, and I have no issue. And Nancy has been wonderful on Facebook, sending me content, joke videos that are full on Quebecois, because Quebecers, it's like, it's not quite as bad as the way Newfies talk, but it's close. It's close. It's like New Brunswick. They like machine gun. Ben toi, qu'est-ce que tu penses là? Yeah. Hey, yeah, what do you think, eh? Yeah. And you really need to tune your ear to be able to hear it. And let's see. Beautiful Dreams is continuing to write comments in the stream, and I always appreciate the comments. She's saying that she is very wide awake from too many cups of coffee. Looks like we may not be politically aligned, but we are coffee aligned. I drink a lot of coffee, too much, and it seems the Big Apple. It's worth. It's a total. I'll tell you. I'm not, I'm gonna get banned from the tourist bureau, but I'm here to tell you it's a tourist trap. The Big Apple is a total tourist trap, but you know what? I go. It's fun. They have petting zoo, feed the animals, put the quarter, the loony, the toonie in, and have a goat nibble whatever out of your hand, and chickens and ducks and geese and all manner of animals. Nice little petting zoo. I haven't been there yet with Max the Wonder Dog because we only got Max November 18th. But my previous dog, we had her up there, Candy. And then you have the big shop where they sell the apple, blueberry, strawberry, rhubarb, pumpkin, any type of pie you want. You can get it there. And they do the McDonald's thing where they have a tabulator telling you how many pies they've sold. Anyway, uh, and what's it? Oh, okay. Whale is saying that he stood. Took me a second to get the acronym. That he stood on the observation deck of the World Trade Center, and ESB, ESB ESB. I'm saying it, trying to think. What is help me out, Whale. I don't know what ESB stands for. It's something with an observation deck. Empire State Building. I've been up the Empire State Building. I also many times went to the agency that my father worked at in the Wall Street district. Many times to go up there. And New York is something. I can still, I lived in New Jersey until I was in grade 4, so I can still do the New York. New York, Northern New Jersey, they talk the same. It's that same New Yorker type accent. And up until I was 9, 10 years old, this is the way I talked. I was a talker. I didn't have a dog. I had a dog. Hey, come here. You see my dog? That's the way you talk. Anyway, that's a digression. So Quebec is looking very much in flux. I don't think there is anyone like a Mark Carney who can come in and resurrect the fortunes of the Coalition Avenir de Quebec. I think they're done. I think they're done. But as we saw in our most recent election, you got to wait till the votes are counted. I did a video in February of 2025 with a friend, Jack Lapierre from he's up in Petawawa. And in that video, if you want to look back, February of last year, it was not a live stream, it was uploaded. So you got to look under the video section. Jack and I were talking about the coming election, but at that time, Trudeau was still the leader. And I speculated. Actually, he wasn't the leader. He was going to be replaced, and we all knew it was going to be Mark Carney. And I said, with Carney as the leader, because of his background as governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England, head of, chairman of Brookfield, got them to move the head office from Toronto to New York City. But most Canadians don't go too deep in the weeds. They watch the news. The news tells them former governor of the Bank of Canada, maybe, first ever Canadian, first ever foreigner chosen for the, incredibly prestigious Bank of England. Oh, this guy must be good. He must be great. The Bank of England wanted him. Then he went to work at the UN, pushing the climate change. Oh, I'm worried about climate change. Climate never changed before. Climate's like the world order. Everything always stays the same in the world. They never reorder things. The climate doesn't change. Oh, I like this guy. I don't think too many people dug too deep into Mark Carney's background, his relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein's paramour. But regardless, because of that, I said to my friend Jack, I said, if Carney wins the leadership, and I would bet any amount of money that he will, is what I was saying back then. I said, I could see him resurrecting liberal fortunes enough to either push the conservatives down to a minority, or conversely, with the liberals gaining enough to actually stay in government in a minority situation themselves. Mark Carney, so I had two possible. I didn't see with Mark Carney leading the Liberal Party. I did not see Pierre Poilievre forming a majority government. I thought maybe a minority, but I could also see the Liberals getting a minority. And the Liberals they got a super minority. They came within a whisker on the seat count from getting that majority mandate. And we'll get on to that. Can that happen in Quebec? Anything's possible. It will depend who the Coalition Avenir de Quebec chooses. One name being punted is a rather prominent Mario Dumont, who was kind of like Plamondon. He was kind of the smart, young wonder kid 15, 20 years ago. He started a party called Action Démocratique, Democratic Action. And I think he won a seat. I think he got a seat in the National Assembly, and very well spoken, very articulate, very charismatic. He's now something of a media personality in Quebec. Uh, he has indicated that he's not interested. Remember, politics. No one says anything, they indicate. Well, as I indicated yesterday, I'm not interested. Comme j'ai indiqué l'autre jour, je ne suis pas intéressé dans la position de chefferie de la partie CAC. Anyway, uh, Beautiful Dreams is saying, I am just thinking that the New World Order could be a conspiracy theory promoted by fascists to end democracy in the world. I think the thing is, I think we are in a transit. We're moving into this digital age. We're moving into the surveillance age. And the one thing that happens with government is they never give up power. They're always looking to expand. Government never shrinks. It always gets bigger and bigger and bigger everywhere. And then eventually, everywhere it implodes. And there's a transition. And that's the phase we're in right now. And whoever takes over the wheel, whoever has their hands driving the bus, is going to, it's not going to be a good world to be living in, is what I'm here to say. I'm talking about biometric surveillance, and this exists now in China, this country that Mark Carney has us cozying up to. They have the social credit score there already. And the social credit score is this: if you're late to work, your social credit score goes down. If you post something online that is not liked, the government doesn't like what you have to say, they don't like you sharing that opinion, your credit score goes down. If you're jaywalking, credit score goes down. Major cities in China, they have biometric surveillance for, iris, facial recognition, and they can even recognize your gait, your the way you walk. They can recognize it. And most people know it, but people have a distinctive walk. It first struck me during a nighttime military exercise that I was doing. And there was a guy whose name was Ernst, who was in our little group. And he had a very distinctive walk, but we're a night exercise. They were using what is referred to as light discipline, which means no light. Only if you use a flashlight, it has to have a red filter over the light so that you don't mess up your rods and your cones and you can see. And so when someone would go walking, all you would see is a silhouette. You wouldn't be able to see their face. You wouldn't be able to you couldn't really tell even how tall or short they were, but you could see their gait. And one time Ernst came walking by and I went, "Hey, Ernst." And he went, how'd you know it was me? And it's the way he walked. And I found I could do that with everyone. And China now has surveillance where they're watching you constantly, video surveillance, closed circuit TVs, high resolution cameras. And if they can't get your iris, if they can't get facial recognition, identify him by his walk. And then that again, if you're found doing things wrong in the eyes of the Chinese Communist Party, your social credit score goes down. How does that manifest? Well, I want to go travel and I have to use state controlled train, plane, and they say, sorry, your social credit score is too low. You're not allowed to get on the train or the plane. If a kid wants to go to a rave that's in, Shanghai, and well, sorry, you're not allowed to go to the rave. Social credit score is too low. And that's the type of system we're moving toward in Canada. The only question is who's going to control it? Is it going to be the corporate sector with government there, as their watchdog bully policeman? Or is it going to be, more of a communistic Chinese style? We'll find out. It's coming. I mentioned earlier in the stream, I am a professing Christian, the profanity, mild profanity notwithstanding. And, most will be familiar with chapter 13 of the book of Revelation with what it says about the mark of the beast. That all, big and small, great and little, everybody has to take the mark of the beast, either on their hand or on the forehead. And less or they can't buy and sell in the marketplace. And I take that phrasing, you won't be able to buy and sell in the marketplace, and what I extrapolated out, you won't be able to be a functioning member of society. And I considered the vaccine passport to be very much a precursor, kind of a test run, a beta test for the mark of the beast, for the digital ID. If you want to come into this restaurant, show me some mark. You want to get on the plane. If you want your son to play hockey, you can't do it unless you have some mark. Show me your papers. That was the world we were living in for a time, from about September, October 2021 until some months after the trucker convoy. God bless those truckers. Uh, And I've done videos before talking about the mark of the beast specifically. You can find one a few months back, I think October, you know, digital ID kind of showing thumbnail shows a woman's face with a barcode over her face, and the phrasing I have with it. Anyway, Laura Floyd showed up. God bless. Good to see you, my friend. Um, and Laura Floyd. No, I'm sometimes get the names mixed up. Laura Floyd, are you down in Brantford? Anyway, uh, every this is Whale writing. Every physical background has already been IDs, so they know where you are. Yikes! No kidding. And beautiful dreams 6711 is writing a unique walking gait. What I was talking about is like a fingerprint, and it's true. Although I don't think it would be as accurate as a fingerprint, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a major league techie. Look at my YouTube station, as raw, bare bones, basic as you could find. If you want something dressed up, I mean, there's so many out there, redacted and this perspective, that, and you see wonderful production values. It looks like a nightly newscast, professional mic, professional lighting, got the blue screen type technology. And again, looks like the newscast. When I watch those, I watch them. I like the content a lot of the time, but in the back of my mind, I just wonder: is anyone pulling the strings? Is there an agenda at work here? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I might be paranoid. I acknowledge that. But uh, I'm going to tell you, and I will tell you, even though I'm saying this, be skeptical. But I do not have anyone pulling the strings. I'm live and unscripted. I'm talking off the top of my head in my live videos. When I do a pre-recorded video, I'll write out something, and then I will record a video on my laptop and I will upload it. But these are my own words. I'm not using AI to generate the content. And if you enjoy that kind of stuff, it's a bit of an ad for my channel. Thank you for the thumbs up that you've given me already. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, if you haven't already, you're most welcome. I don't make a lot of money from it. A few nickels, dimes, quarters. I think the most I've ever gotten for a video ever made was $6 or $7. Little money here and there. And my attitude on that is my primary motivation is not, I'm not trying to get rich on YouTube. But at the same time, I'm not averse to money. I am not a communist. And if YouTube wants to let it, that people come watch my station, then they watch other things. So, and YouTube is a business and they have ads and generates revenue for them. Well, if they'll let the odd nickel, dime, quarter, and a rare $5 bill drop into my little cup, I'm not going to say no. Anyway, long diversion. And oh my goodness, Laura Floyd, bless your heart. Is from the great state of Texas. And by the way, I know there's a lot of animosity now between Americans and Canadians. You're not going to get that here. I love my American friends. Uh, I recognize, and I'm sure you do too. Is the United States perfect? No, there is no perfect country in the world. America has its problems, its challenges, its flaws. So does Canada. So does every country in the world. I love my American friends. Beautiful country. And I spent 10 years growing up in your United States. I can still recite, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and promote the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. That is the preamble to the Constitution of the United States, and I'm probably 98.6% right. I don't think I got 100%, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty good on the money. Anyway, uh, Beautiful Dreams 6711 is writing, they must have watched me like a hawk when I traveled to China to stop to shop handbags and shoes and eat. I imagine they do. And I would be very leery of going to China for the simple reason of the two Michaels. What had happened was Hawaii, or however you pronounce it, it's a cell phone manufacturer, tech company, Hawaii, not sure how you say it. And we had detained um, an executive from that company here, and then two individuals. One of them, I think, was a teacher teaching English as a foreign language. Two guys, both named Michael, were detained, and they were held for a year and a half, 2 years. And it was just a game of tit for tat, where China, we accused, or this individual with Hawaii Canada was accused of being engaged in espionage. And China said, all right, you're taking one of ours, we'll take two of your guys. I don't think. Now, the one thing is, this is why would you spy on Canada? Because we're a window into the United States, and it's easier. We don't have the security that the Americans have. So Canada is something of a Trojan horse, but not quite. We're like a Trojan horse that's right on the border looking in. And uh, Canada ourselves, I don't think we engage in much espionage, but I'm sure, I know there is some. I was signals. That was my trade in the military, SIGOP, Royal Canadian Corps of Signals. For a time, they were going to change it to ACES Tech, Army Communication Information Systems Specialist. And thankfully, they went and they said, now Royal Canadian Corps of Signals, like that, a lot more. And we have a SIG Int division. I'll leave that there. For those who know, those who don't know, if you're motivated, look into it. Uh, and something, Beautiful Dreams is saying that something is scary. Whale Oil is saying they watch me shopping for lawnmowers, spices, and fishing tackle. He's probably talking about in BC. BC has a very large Chinese community. Uh, and and I like what Laura Floyd is saying. Love y'all too. And that should be all y'all. I like there's an interesting thing about, the way the Southerners talk. There's y'all, and then there's all y'all. And the equivalent for Northerners would be, oh, I told everybody. I mean everybody. I wasn't just talking to y'all. I'm talking to all y'all. Not just talking to everyone. I'm talking to everyone. I like it. Anyway, Beautiful. We got a little back and forth going on. Anyway, uh, I'm going to wrap up, but there's one more political event that's happening, and it's a big one. It's getting a lot of chatter in the US. There's a guy, and again, this is where, does he have strength? His channel is just too nice for me to think that he doesn't, Dr. Steve Turley, your professor of truth. Has anyone seen him? I enjoy his content, but I wonder if there are strings behind him. But at any rate, he's been focusing a lot on the situation in Western Canada, specifically Alberta, might include Saskatchewan, and the pending referendum. They're gathering the signatures right now. They're not going to have any trouble getting it. And sometime within the next few months, less than a year, Alberta will be having a referendum, and the referendum question will be, should Alberta separate from Canada and become an independent country? And maybe Saskatchewan will be included with it. And I'm here to say it ain't going to fly. I honestly think that the highest level of support that the separatist movement would get out west is 40. And that's the highest. I don't think it would get that high, but I'm going to give myself a margin. I actually think a third or so. But maybe it could push up to 40, but I cannot see it going beyond that. And the reason is simple, and it's because a lot of Albertans, like a lot of Canadians, are older. And it's that better the devil you know than you don't know scenario, is that I believe that the vast majority, two-thirds, maybe at the lowest 60%, still a strong majority, are going to say, well, I like the idea of separating and being our own country, but what about the post office? What about my pension? What about this? What about that? What about my passport? I'm going to stick with the devil that I know, recognizing that it's a devil. Everything of this, we live in a beastly world. We live in a beastly world. Scripture often refers, you'll hear Christians say it too, that, Satan is the prince of this world. And you see, it's exemplified everywhere you go. There's brokenness and fallenness everywhere. And the first place we have to look, rather than looking out, I mean, it's easy to look at Trump. It's a very flawed individual. Oh, Trump's horrible. Carney, oh, he's terrible. Oh my God, Carney, screw Trudeau. Da, da, da. Before looking outward, got to look inward and recognize that the broken, fallen, and sinful state that we're all in, all of us, everyone. And that is a call. If you can recognize that, I have to check myself. I have to preach the cross to myself continually. And there are periods, times, days, weeks, months will go by where I don't do it or I don't do it enough. And I become Mr. High and Mighty and judgmental. And then I'm convinced that, the Holy Spirit works in me and God works on me and things happen in my life to knock me back down. And, you're not everything in a bag of chips. When I come to, there's a sermon by Alistair Begg, who is a bit of a controversial figure, but he gave one amazing sermon. You can look it up, The Thief on the Cross. And he said, the Fort Lauderdale question that they ask, if you were to die tonight, what would you say? And then he says, if you answer that question in the first person, you've immediately gone wrong. What are you doing to gain entry into, what by what right are you here gaining entry to heaven? And if you say, or I say, if we say, because I believe, because I am continuing, the only answer is in the third person because because what Jesus did on the cross. There's nothing I can do to reconcile myself to a perfect and holy God. Nothing. And anyway, check out Alistair Begg, The Thief on the Cross. The whole sermon is amazing, but at least there's a 2-3 minute segment. Anyway, let's read this. I'm going to read this, the last few comments. Please don't fill it up too much anymore. And and I'll wrap up tonight. I typically 99% of the time or most of the time I end my videos with a blessing from the book of Numbers, and I'll do that. But let me just read this. Um, got the greetings going back and forth, and then beautiful dreams. And Etobicoke wrote, I dared not go to China back then, only until recently. I was afraid of being detained and accused of spying. Is what would keep me from going. I'm ex-military. That would immediately put me under, I suspect, suspicion. I was worried when I took winter vacations down in Cuba. It's a communist country, allied with Russia, allied with China. Kind of, yeah. Anytime I traveled anywhere, down to Panama, down to Dominican, it's a little nerve-wracking. I wouldn't have any compunction about traveling to the United States. For too long, I wasn't allowed to travel because I didn't have the vaccine. I couldn't. The thought of crossing the border. Uh, Believe it or not, the reason I didn't go into the combat arms, the reason I went into communication, is I'm actually not a confrontational person. I don't enjoy confrontation. Um, And Whale is writing that separation in the West, that it is an invitation for US takeover. I think that would be the inevitability if Alberta, Saskatchewan, or if it expanded, whatever, even if it's just Alberta, if they were to separate, eventually they would have to tie themselves to another country. And the obvious choice is the US. And then the dominoes start to fall. And then we are the 51st state. And I'm here to say I lived 10 years in the States. I was a kid, notwithstanding, but I keep up on things. There are parts of the States that I would be more inclined to live in than others. I'd be more inclined to live in the Dakotas, more inclined to live, in Texas, probably West Texas, because I don't want to get hit by a hurricane. uh, East Texas, Beaumont, Houston. I don't want to be near. Uh, might want to. I might even. Yeah, I might be willing to even look at a state like Tennessee and get my Southern accent going. I was in a play once. I was in Cat in a Hot Tin Roof. I played Brother Man, and I had to talk mendacity. Anyway, uh, Laura's saying, right on, only Jesus. Amen, sister. And Beautiful Dream says amen as well. All right, here's the blessing. It's from the book of Numbers, end of chapter 6. Aaron speaking this over God's covenant chosen people. This is a shortened, redacted version, but I ask you to receive these words. When I'm in church, when the pastor says them, I spread out and I'm like, and the words that Aaron spoke and that I'm repeating are, may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And may the Lord God Almighty, creator of all things, who took on human form, sent his son to die on a cross to reconcile you to him. May he grant you peace. And I'm here to say that you, even in a crazy upside down world with, political turmoil, New World Order, ICE raids down in Minnesota, Renee Good getting shot in the face, a kid losing sight in an eye, another woman being dragged out. My gosh, is the world gone crazy? You can find peace in Christ. You can overcome this world because he overcame, we can overcome. And you can find joy, you can find peace, you can smile, you can be happy, you can live the way God intended you to live by coming into relationship with his son. And you're not going to do it on I'm not going to bring you to Christ. You're not going to find faith on a YouTube channel. It can help, but you're not, if you want to find faith, we are called to live in community. I think it's in Hebrews chapter 10. Do not forsake the coming together, as is the habit of some, but gather together even more, especially as the day draws near, encouraging one another, building one another up. We need each other. We are supposed to be in community. And this, what's happening right now between us, if anyone who's watching, whether you're watching live or later, this isn't interaction. This isn't human contact. This is like trying to draw heat from that fireplace TV station during Christmas. There's no heat, there's no warmth. So I urge anyone who's not in a faith community to seek one out. Find a church that preaches from God's holy book. And I always have a Bible, not the one I usually read. It's my old Canadian Forces edition. It's a good news translation. But it's interesting to contrast and compare New International, Good News, King James, Standard Revised. Anyway, I'm rambling. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I really enjoyed it, even though I know it was all over the place. God bless and hope to see you back. Fill the comment field if something strikes you. Anyway, good night, all. Hey, beautiful dreams, Laura Floyd, Whale Oil Beef, Nancy, Danny, who was here earlier but had to tap out. Everyone who showed up. Really appreciate you guys. And we'll see y'all again, I hope. God bless.